The stars glimmered over the alien capital, a city of silver towers and glowing crystal spires. On the tallest tower, Queen Solara stood looking down at her people. Her eyes were like liquid sapphire, bright and sharp, filled with pride. She ruled the empire with strength and intelligence, and she had rejected every suitor that dared to come before her. None of the alien nobles were worthy in her eyes. Solara was known for her courage and wisdom, but she was also feared. No one dared challenge her, not openly. And yet her heart held a quiet emptiness, a place no power could fill. She had everything: wealth, authority, loyalty, but no companion who could match her spirit. Far from the alien capital, on a human-colonized world, Kale worked as a diplomat. He was not tall or muscular, and he had no dazzling aura. His strength was different: calm thinking, sharp observation, and a quiet confidence. Humans were often underestimated by other species. Many aliens thought humans were weak, fragile, and simple. Kale had seen them all laugh at humans during council meetings, dismissing them as insignificant. But Kale knew better. Humans survived because they were clever, adaptable, and brave when it mattered most. The day Solara and Kale met was unusual. She had traveled to the human colony to oversee a treaty, arriving with her golden court. Humans watched in awe as the queen walked through the halls of their city. She moved with grace and power, her presence commanding silence and respect. Kale waited in the delegation hall, observing the alien customs carefully. He knew little about their complex rituals, but he had studied their ways. When Solara entered, Kale noticed something odd. She did not intimidate him. Instead, he felt calm, as if he could read the depth behind her pride. "Welcome, Queen Solara," Kale said politely, bowing slightly in human custom. "I hope your journey was peaceful." Solara's eyes narrowed for a brief moment, curious. Most aliens expected humans to tremble before them. But Kale's voice was steady, his tone confident yet respectful. It was unusual, and it caught her attention. "You have traveled far to meet me," Solara replied. Her voice was soft, yet every word carried weight. "Do humans treat their guests well?" Kale smiled faintly. "We try. But sometimes visitors teach us more than we teach them." Solara's curiosity grew. She had never met a human who spoke so boldly without arrogance. Most of her alien advisors had warned her that humans were inferior, weak, and simple-minded. Yet Kale's presence was different. There was intelligence and subtle strength in his calm demeanor. The meeting continued with formalities. Alien ministers questioned Kale, expecting him to falter, but he answered every question thoughtfully, demonstrating understanding beyond what most aliens could imagine. Solara noticed his eyes, sharp and observant, missing nothing. By the end of the day, Solara's mind was restless. She had been intrigued by humans before, but she had never met one like Kale. His quiet strength and intelligence challenged her assumptions, and for the first time, she felt a spark of curiosity. Not political, not strategic, but personal. The following weeks were filled with official ceremonies, dinners, and discussions. Solara observed Kale closely. He adapted quickly to alien customs, learning the language and observing traditions. Where other humans might have faltered, Kale found clever ways to honor both his people and hers. One evening, Solara invited Kale to the palace gardens. The twin moons of her planet shone softly, reflecting off the crystal fountains. The air was fragrant with alien blossoms, and the sound of distant waterfalls filled the space between them. "Kyle," Solara said quietly, "why do you carry yourself so differently from the other humans I have met?" Kale looked at her, thoughtful. "Perhaps it is because I do not fear being underestimated. I know what humans can achieve when we work together, and I know that appearances often deceive." Solara tilted her head, studying him. "And what do you see when you look at me?" Kale hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I see a leader. Strong, wise, proud, but also someone who carries her own solitude. You command respect, yet I feel that very few truly understand you." Solara felt a strange warmth in her chest. Few had spoken to her like that. Most saw her as untouchable, unreachable. Kale saw her differently. He did not try to flatter her. He simply understood. Rumors began to swirl among the alien nobles. Solara's fascination with the human diplomat was unusual. Some whispered that she might be softening her heart, an unthinkable possibility for the queen who had rejected all suitors. Others suspected political motives, but Solara's own thoughts were neither political nor strategic. She was curious, and that curiosity led to boldness. At a Grand Council meeting, a heated debate erupted. The alien nobles criticized the treaty with the humans, claiming that the humans were weak and untrustworthy. They sneered at Kale, trying to provoke him. Solara interrupted, her voice sharp and commanding. Enough. Kale has proven himself more capable than many of you today. Your assumptions about humans are based on arrogance, not fact. The council was stunned. They rarely heard such words from their queen. Kale bowed respectfully, acknowledging Solara's support without arrogance. That night, Solara pondered the situation. Humans were different, yes, but Kale represented something beyond differences. His intelligence, calm strength, and courage fascinated her. And she realized something startling. She did not want to be without him. Impulsively, Solara sent a message to Kale. She requested his presence in her private chambers. When he arrived, she was seated on a platform overlooking the city lights. Her posture relaxed yet regal. Kyle, she said, you have impressed me greatly. More than I expected, more than anyone could have. Kale inclined his head. Your words honor me, Queen Solara. I only do what I can. Solara's eyes held his gaze. I do not care for ordinary companions. I care for someone who surprises me, someone who challenges the world with me. You are that person. Kale's brow lifted. You speak as if this is personal, not political. Solara nodded. It is personal, and I am not the kind of queen who allows convention to dictate my life. I want you as my partner. Kyle hesitated, realizing the weight of her words. He knew humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, and he knew alien queens rarely chose humans for themselves. But he saw sincerity in her eyes, the same curiosity and respect he had felt when he first met her. I accept, Kale said finally, not because I'm fearless, but because I trust you, and because I believe in what we can achieve together. The council and the alien court were stunned the next day. The queen had married a human. Whispers and murmurs filled the halls. How could a human, a species considered fragile and weak, be chosen by the mighty Solara? Many doubted Kale's ability to live in the palace, let alone manage the complex empire. Solara ignored the whispers. She walked beside Kale through the crystal halls, her mind alive with curiosity. She wanted to see what he could do, how he would navigate her world. Kale was quiet, confident, and careful. He learned quickly, observing customs without losing himself. Yet even as the palace buzzed with gossip, Solara felt a thrill she had not known in years. She was excited, not about politics, not about power, but about the possibilities this human brought into her life. Kyle was ordinary by alien standards, but extraordinary in ways no one had predicted. As the twin moons rose high in the sky, Solara and Kyle stood on the balcony, overlooking the city. Stars reflected in her eyes, and she saw him differently now. Not as a diplomat, not as a visitor, but as a companion who could surprise her at every turn. She wondered quietly, what true strength did he possess? And she realized, with a shiver of anticipation, that she was about to find out. The night was calm, yet it felt electric with possibilities. The queen had chosen a human, defying her people, defying expectations, and the human, quiet, clever, and underestimated, was about to step into a world far beyond what he had ever imagined. The first step of their journey together had begun, and neither of them knew how far it would take them. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would not be the same, and the alien queen's choice would echo across worlds for generations to come. Kyle's first days in the palace were both overwhelming and fascinating. The halls were taller than any human building he had ever seen, carved from shining crystal and metal, and filled with lights that floated in the air. Every door, every chamber seemed alive with alien energy. For Kale, this was a world far beyond anything humans had achieved. Yet he felt a strange comfort here, an odd blend of curiosity and determination. Queen Solara guided him through the palace, teaching him the rules of her world. Some rules were simple: bowing to elders, respecting council decisions, and honoring sacred spaces. Others were strange to Kale, like communicating through subtle energy pulses or reading the court's unspoken signals. He stumbled at first, and a few of the nobles whispered behind his back, predicting that he would fail. But Kale was quick to learn. His human adaptability became his greatest strength. Solara watched him carefully. Each mistake he made, he corrected with careful thought, not pride. Each time he observed an alien custom, He understood the purpose behind it. She began to see that Kale was not just clever, he had a mind that worked in ways her people had never imagined. "You are learning quickly," she said one morning as they walked through the floating gardens of the palace. Most aliens would have been defeated by this environment in a week. "You adapt as if it were natural," Kale smiled. "I've survived humans and aliens alike. Adaptation is how we continue." Solara's sapphire eyes narrowed slightly, curious. "And yet you are calm in situations that would terrify others." "You do not show fear," Kale shrugged. "Fear is normal, but it is not always useful. Observation and action are stronger than panic." The nobles were not impressed. They viewed humans as fragile and unpredictable. Some openly mocked Kale, calling him simple and unworthy of the queen's attention. But Solara did not falter. She had chosen him and she saw what they could not. A human mind could hold strategy, patience and courage all at once. One day, while touring a council chamber, Kale noticed a flaw in a defensive system. The palace relied on alien technology to protect itself, but the arrangement of the energy shields left a small gap, invisible to the untrained eye. Kale pointed it out to Solara quietly. "This could be exploited," he said. "Not by ordinary intruders, but a clever enemy might find it." Solara's eyes widened slightly. "Most of my generals would never see this." "How do you notice it?" Kale smiled faintly. "Humans are trained to find weaknesses. It is not arrogance, it is observation." Solara realized with a thrill she had never known that Kale could see her world differently. Not worse, not better, but differently. And that difference mattered. The following weeks tested Kale further. The alien nobles tried to trap him with complicated customs, hoping he would make mistakes and embarrass the queen. At first, Kale stumbled in small ways, bowing incorrectly or misunderstanding a ritual, but he learned quickly, adapting his human logic to alien traditions. Each success, small or large, earned Solara's admiration and fueled the court's gossip. Despite the palace politics, Solara began to enjoy her time with Kale. She invited him to private spaces, sharing her favorite gardens, teaching him how to read the stars on her planet, and explaining her empire's history. Kale listened carefully, asking questions that surprised Solara. He did not pretend to know everything, yet he understood more than she expected. One evening, while walking through a luminescent hall, Kale noticed subtle energy fluctuations. Someone had tampered with the palace's security system. He approached the queen. "Solara," he whispered. "Something is wrong. The energy shields are irregular." Solara frowned. "Are you certain?" Kale nodded. "I am. We should investigate." They moved cautiously through the corridors. Kale's human instincts allowed him to sense danger differently than any alien. He noticed patterns, calculated risks, and predicted potential threats. By the time they reached the source of the disturbance, Kale had identified a minor sabotage attempt. Solara watched in surprise as Kale neutralized the threat with clever use of the palace's technology, combining alien energy systems with human improvisation. Guards arrived moments later, astonished to see that no harm had been done. "You handled that flawlessly," Solara said, her voice soft with admiration. "Most of my generals would have panicked or acted recklessly." Kale shook his head. "Sometimes thinking calmly is stronger than acting with force. Humans survive this way." Word of Kale's cleverness spread quickly. Some nobles began to view him with grudging respect. Others whispered that the queen's choice might not be foolish after all. Yet not everyone accepted him. Rival factions in the court quietly plotted, hoping to challenge Kale's position and embarrass the queen. Solara sensed the tension. She began to rely on Kyle not only for companionship, but also for guidance. His perspective, rooted in human reasoning, offered solutions that her advisors could not see. The queen's pride made her hesitant to admit it, yet she found herself increasingly dependent on him. One afternoon, Solara invited Kale to a council meeting. The topic was a trade dispute with a neighboring system. The alien ministers argued loudly, each trying to outmaneuver the other. Kale listened quietly, noting the flaws in their logic. When Solara asked for his opinion, he spoke clearly and calmly, suggesting a solution that balanced diplomacy and security. The council was stunned. No human had ever dared offer strategy at this level, and Kale's proposal solved the dispute in a way that satisfied both sides. Solara felt pride swell in her chest. She had chosen wisely. Kale was not just intelligent. He had a mind that could navigate alien politics, foresee consequences, and act with courage. As days turned into weeks, Kale's presence became a stabilizing force in the palace. He moved among the aliens with calm confidence, earning respect slowly but surely. Children of the palace were fascinated by his human ways, and even the more rigid elders began to acknowledge his cleverness. Yet Kale remained humble. He did not boast or demand recognition. Instead, he continued learning, observing, and assisting the queen. Solara, who had once ruled alone, began to appreciate the partnership. She found herself laughing more, thinking more freely, and seeing her empire in a new light. But the palace was not without danger. Some alien factions still resented a human's presence. They whispered about Kale's weaknesses, plotting subtle ways to test him. Solara knew this, and she began training herself to recognize threats differently, learning from Kale's calm reasoning. Together, they became a quiet but formidable team. One night, as they walked through the gardens under twin moons, Solara spoke softly. "Kale, do you realize what you are doing here? You are changing the way my empire sees humans, and perhaps the way I see the world." Kale looked at her, eyes thoughtful. "I do not wish to change anyone's mind with words. I only wish to act in ways that show what is possible." Solara smiled. "And that you do. You have surprised me in ways I never imagined. I thought humans were simple, but you have proven otherwise." Kale's expression remained calm, yet there was a spark of pride. "I only act as any human would, given the chance," Solara laughed softly. "And yet most humans would never have survived here. You are extraordinary." For the first time in her life, Solara felt that her choice was not just bold, it was revolutionary. She was not only a queen who had married a human, she was a queen whose human companion could stand beside her as an equal, perhaps even stronger than anyone imagined. As they returned to the palace, the lights of the city reflected in Solara's eyes. The world was changing, quietly but surely. With Kale by her side, she knew that the unexpected marriage was only the beginning of a journey neither she nor her people could have predicted. And somewhere deep within the palace walls, subtle plots were forming. Rival factions whispered, allies observed, and the galaxy beyond watched. Kale's human mind, combined with Solara's leadership, was about to challenge expectations in ways no one could foresee. The queen's choice had brought a new force into her empire, quiet, clever, and underestimated by most. A human who could think, act, and survive like no one expected. And Solara, proud and curious, was ready to see just how far this force could reach. The weeks passed, and Kale's presence in the palace became impossible to ignore. Word of his cleverness and calm authority spread across the empire, even reaching distant provinces. Some aliens admired him, quietly respecting the human who had earned the queen's trust. Others, however, whispered venomously, convinced that a human could never truly belong among them. Solara noticed the tension in the court. Certain nobles who had been loyal before now exchanged cold glances when Kale entered the room. Some plotted in hushed tones, seeking ways to discredit him. Their envy was obvious, but Solara did not fear confrontation. She had chosen Kale, and she trusted his mind as much as his loyalty. One morning, the queen and Kale were summoned to the council chamber. The alien ministers were unusually tense, speaking in sharp, clipped tones. Solara noticed a flicker of unease in the council's leader, General Voris. "Your Majesty," Voris said, "we face troubling reports from the outer sectors. A faction of aliens, previously unknown to us, has begun moving toward the capital. Their intentions are unclear, but they are heavily armed." Solara frowned. "How much do we know about them?" Voris hesitated. "Little. Their technology seems advanced, though unconventional. We have sent scouts, but communication is limited." Kale listened carefully, observing the minister's reactions. He noticed subtle signs of fear in the council, tiny shifts in posture, trembling energy pulses, and hesitation in speech. Most of the ministers had dismissed minor threats before, but Kale understood instinctively that this was serious. "Your Majesty," Kale said quietly, "I believe we should not rely solely on traditional defenses. The outer faction may anticipate conventional strategies. We need to consider unexpected approaches, ones that combine your technology with tactics unfamiliar to them." Voris scoffed. "And what would a human know of alien tactics?" Solara's voice cut through sharply. "He observes. He reasons. I trust his judgment. the council murmured uneasily. Kale did not flinch. Instead, he outlined a plan that relied on prediction, pattern recognition, and adaptive strategies. He suggested repositioning defensive shields in unexpected ways and using decoy signals to confuse the approaching fleet. Solara was impressed by the clarity of his thought. She could see the council's unease, but she also recognized Kale's potential. The human's mind worked differently, and that difference could save their empire. Days passed in preparation. Kale and Solara worked together, studying the alien maps, adjusting energy shields, and training the palace guards in new formations. The queen began to notice that Kale's approach combined precision with creativity, unlike anything the alien generals had devised. Meanwhile, rumors swirled. Some nobles whispered that Kale had secret powers, that humans were capable of things no one had imagined. Others doubted the queen's judgment entirely. Yet despite the gossip, Solara stood firm. She had chosen Kale for his mind, courage, and wisdom, not for appearances or approval. One evening, while reviewing maps with Solara, Kale noticed a pattern in the outer faction's movements. "They are predictable if we observe carefully," he said. "They are using conventional fleet strategies, but they underestimate how quickly we can adapt." "We can exploit that," Solara's eyes brightened. "Show me." Kyle outlined a plan using their existing ships, shield arrays, and hidden weapon platforms. His strategy was unconventional, blending alien technology with ideas humans had developed for space exploration and defense. Solara listened, amazed by the combination of logic and creativity. "Your approach is brilliant," she said softly. "Most of my council would never even consider this." Kyle shook his head. "I only observe what is before me. Plans work when we understand both our strengths and our opponent's weaknesses." The queen realized she was not only learning from him, she was inspired. Kale's human perspective challenged her assumptions and opened her mind to new possibilities. Together, they began to prepare for what might be the greatest test the palace had ever faced. Rumors of Kale's abilities reached even the palace servants. Some whispered that he was more than human, that his calm confidence hid extraordinary power. Others simply admired his courage, noting how he walked among aliens as if he belonged. Children of the palace were fascinated, following him with questions and curiosity. Yet not everyone was pleased. Several alien nobles decided to test Kale openly. They presented challenges, from complicated riddles of logic to intricate maneuvers of palace technology, hoping to prove that a human could not match their intelligence. Kale solved each challenge not by force but by observation and clever thinking. Each solution shocked the nobles and further unsettled the court. Solara watched quietly, pride mixing with surprise. She had expected Kale to adapt, but she had not anticipated how quickly he would excel. Even in the face of doubt, he remained calm, solving problems that others could not. The queen realized that her choice was not just bold, it was revolutionary. One day, as Solara and Kale walked through the city gardens, a message arrived from the outer sectors. Scouts reported that the approaching faction had changed course, moving closer to critical trade hubs. Their fleet was larger than expected, and their speed suggested they were confident of victory. Kale examined the data carefully. "They are confident," he said. "They underestimate us because they believe a human is weak. That will be their mistake." Solara's lips curved into a faint smile. "And what do you plan to do?" Kale pointed to a map of the outer sectors. "We will prepare defenses, but we will also create unpredictability. Humans thrive on adaptation. We will force them to respond to actions they cannot anticipate." Solara felt a thrill of excitement and fear. The stakes were higher than ever, yet she trusted Kale completely. She had seen his mind at work, his calm reasoning and his courage. Now she realized she was witnessing the beginnings of a new kind of power. That night, as the twin moons shone over the palace, Solara could not sleep. She wandered the halls reflecting on the coming challenges. The outer faction was dangerous, but with Kale beside her, she felt a strength she had never known. Not just in weapons or shields, but in the mind and courage of the human she had married. Meanwhile, Kale studied the fleet patterns, energy shields, and weapon systems, refining strategies with patience and precision. He moved quietly without need for recognition, yet every plan he laid increased the safety of the empire. Solara watched him, her admiration growing with each passing day. Rumors continued to swirl among the nobles. Some believed Kale's intelligence was beyond human limits. Others feared the Queen's reliance on him would destabilize their traditions. But Kale did not act out of pride or ambition. He acted from observation, reason, and a desire to protect Solara and the Empire. Solara realized something profound. She had chosen not just a companion, but a partner whose strength came from within. Not from alien technology or royal blood, but from the human mind's ability to adapt, to learn, and to act under pressure. As the first signs of the outer factions' approach neared, tension filled the palace. Kale's strategies were unconventional, yet precise. Solara began to rely on him openly, consulting him in council meetings, strategy sessions, and palace defenses. Slowly, even the most skeptical nobles started to acknowledge his abilities, though some did so grudgingly. One evening, Kale and Solara stood on the palace balcony, watching the distant stars. "They will come soon," Solara said quietly. "Do you think our defenses are ready?" Kale looked at the horizon, his expression calm yet focused. "They will test us, yes. But we have advantages they do not see. They underestimate humans. They underestimate our ability to adapt." Solara nodded. "And what happens if they succeed?" Kale placed a hand gently on hers. "Then we adapt again. Humans survive because we do not give up, and neither will I." Solara felt a shiver of pride and anticipation. Her human husband, quiet, clever, and underestimated, had become the heart of her empire's defense. She had married him for curiosity and admiration, but now she understood. Kyle's true power was just beginning to show. The night was still, but the palace buzzed with preparation. Allies and rivals alike watched Kale and Solara, wondering how this human could affect the fate of the empire. Unknown to them, the calm confidence of one human could change everything. The Queen realized the truth in her heart. Kale's presence was more than a surprise to the court or the galaxy. It was a force that could challenge expectations, protect her empire, and perhaps even redefine what power meant in their world. And deep in the shadows of the outer sectors, the approaching fleet prepared to strike, unaware that their greatest challenge was not the Queen nor her generals, but the human at her side. The stage was set for a test of courage, intelligence, and adaptability, a challenge that would show the galaxy just how underestimated humans could truly be. The outer faction's fleet appeared on the edge of the system like a swarm of dark stars. Their ships moved with precision, confident and threatening. The palace's energy shields glowed, ready to protect the city. But Solara knew that sheer force alone might not be enough. She turned to Kale, whose calm expression never wavered. "The council expects us to rely on conventional tactics," Solara said quietly. "But I trust your judgment. Show me what you plan." Kale nodded and moved to the central command platform. Screens of alien technology and maps displayed the incoming fleet. He studied the formations carefully, noting patterns in the enemy's movement. "They anticipate standard defenses," Kale said, pointing to the projections. "They will try to break through the outer shields first, then target the palace. But they are predictable because they underestimate adaptability. We will use that," Solara observed, her sapphire eyes wide. Kale's approach was different from anything she had ever seen in the alien military. He combined logic, observation, and improvisation in a way that created possibilities others had never considered. "Explain it to the council," Solara instructed. "They must follow your plan." The alien generals were skeptical. Some openly challenged him, insisting that traditional formations and shield placements were sufficient. Kale did not argue. Instead, he demonstrated step by step how the enemy's predictions could be exploited. He moved holographic ships simulating attacks and counterattacks, showing the flaws in the enemy's assumptions. By the time he finished, even the most stubborn generals were silent. His strategy was unconventional, yet flawless in its logic. Solara felt a surge of pride and admiration. Her human husband had taken command without arrogance, yet his mind was clearly unmatched. The battle began at dawn. Kale's strategy was put into action. Alien ships moved in unexpected patterns. Decoy signals confused the enemy, and energy shields were repositioned at precise moments. Every move Kale had predicted unfolded exactly as planned. Solara watched from the palace balcony, her heart pounding. Kale moved through the command platform with quiet authority, issuing orders that no alien had dared propose. Yet his commands were precise, clear, and effective. The enemy fleet faltered, Their attacks, once confident and forceful, began to meet resistance in ways they had not anticipated. Kyle's human logic allowed the defenders to anticipate moves and counter them in real time. Alien generals who had doubted him now followed his instructions with careful respect. As the battle continued, Kyle made split-second decisions, adapting to unexpected threats. Small enemy ships tried to infiltrate the palace's perimeter, but Kale had already predicted the approach. He redirected energy shields and deployed hidden weapons platforms that stunned the invaders. Solara could hardly believe her eyes. Her human husband, once considered unremarkable by many, was orchestrating a defense that was not only brilliant, but life-saving. His calm under pressure inspired confidence, even among those who had doubted him. At one point, the enemy commander sent a strike directly at the palace's central spire. Alien generals panicked, unsure how to respond. Kale stepped forward, analyzing the trajectory and calculating a counterattack. "Divert shield energy here," he instructed, "and launch the interceptors from that position. Focus on speed, not force." The maneuver worked perfectly. The strike was deflected, the enemy's momentum disrupted, and the palace remained unharmed. Solara watched, her admiration deepening. Kale's true power was no longer hidden. It was evident to everyone. Even the rival nobles in the court could not deny it. Murmurs spread, "The human is extraordinary." Some felt awe, others fear, but none could ignore the impact of Kale's intelligence and courage. During the battle, Kale also showed another aspect of his power: leadership. He communicated calmly with soldiers, generals, and palace staff, earning their trust instantly. His instructions were clear, practical, and adaptive. Even inexperienced personnel managed complex operations under his guidance. Solara realized that Kale's strength was more than strategy. It was human adaptability, courage under pressure, and the ability to inspire others. The outer faction, confident of victory, began to falter as their predictable plans were systematically countered. Hours passed, and the enemy's fleet was pushed back. Kale's strategy forced them into positions where they could be isolated and neutralized. Slowly but surely, the tide turned in favor of the defenders. As the battle reached its climax, Kale implemented his final plan. He deployed a combination of decoy signals, trap formations, and precise counterattacks. The enemy fleet, confused and divided, began to retreat. Solara stood beside him, her heart swelling with pride. The queen, who had once feared losing control, now watched as her human husband saved her empire. The palace bells rang in celebration, and the citizens cheered for their unlikely hero. After the battle, Solara embraced Kale. You have done more than I could have imagined," she said, her voice trembling. "The council, the nobles, the entire empire. They are stunned." Kale shook his head. "I only did what I thought necessary. The strength was always here, in the people, in your leadership, and in the systems we adapted together. I only guided it." Solara smiled, understanding the depth of his words. His true power was not just in his mind, it was in his courage, adaptability, and the way he brought out the best in everyone around him. The alien council convened afterward. Many generals who had doubted Kale approached him with newfound respect. Even General Vorus, once critical, acknowledged that the human had saved the empire. "You have changed our understanding of humans," Vorus admitted. "Your tactics, your leadership, we underestimated you." Kale nodded respectfully. "I did not act to prove humans superior. I acted to protect what was important." Solara watched this interaction quietly. Her heart was full. She had chosen wisely, not just a companion, but a partner who could stand beside her in the face of danger. Kale's presence had transformed not only the palace but the empire itself. In the days following the battle, the alien court was quieter, reflective. Some nobles still whispered, but more now observed Kale with respect and curiosity. Rumors of his true abilities spread across the empire, and humans, once dismissed as weak, began to gain new admiration. Solara and Kale walked through the palace gardens in the evening, the air calm after the storm of battle. The twin moons reflected in the pools and flowers glowed softly. "You were remarkable today," Solara said, her voice quiet but filled with awe. "I knew you were clever, but I did not realize." "This," Kale looked at her, calm as always. "I only did what I could. You trusted me, gave me the chance to act. That made the difference." Solara shook her head. "It was more than that. You inspired everyone, even me. I have never seen the palace or the council so united. Kale smiled faintly. Humans are adaptable. We survive because we think, act, and respond. But inspiration, that comes from courage and trust. You gave me that. The queen felt a warmth in her chest, realizing the truth. Kale was extraordinary not because of weapons, not because of alien technology, but because of his mind, heart, and spirit. His true power had been revealed not just to her, but to the entire empire. In the palace halls, servants whispered, soldiers shared tales, and nobles reconsidered their assumptions. The human who had married the alien queen was no longer underestimated. Kale had earned his place through intellect, bravery, and integrity. Solara knew this was only the beginning. The outer faction had retreated, but other challenges would come. The galaxy was vast, full of threats and unexpected trials, and now she understood fully. With Kale at her side, her empire could face any danger. His mind was a weapon, his courage a shield, and his presence a spark that could ignite change. That night, as the stars shone over the palace, Solara and Kyle stood together, quietly watching the horizon. The queen realized that her choice had not only protected the empire, it had revealed something greater. A human underestimated and quiet could stand beside a queen and shape the fate of worlds. And deep in the shadows of distant systems, other observers took note. A human standing beside the alien queen had proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could surpass expectations. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The battle against the outer faction had ended, but the palace and the empire were far from calm. Whispers of Kale's brilliance traveled across the provinces and into distant worlds. Aliens who had doubted him were now forced to recognize his abilities. Yet some nobles remained skeptical, unwilling to admit that a human had changed the course of history. Solara walked through the palace halls, her hand resting lightly on Kale's arm. The court had been quiet all day, as if everyone waited to see how the queen would respond to her husband's growing influence. Solara's heart swelled with pride. She had chosen wisely, not just a companion, not just a partner, but a human whose courage, intelligence, and foresight could save an empire. You have done more than any alien could have imagined, Solara said softly as they approached the council chamber. The empire owes you its survival. Kyle shook his head. I only acted as needed. The credit belongs to all who followed the plan. Humans survive because we observe, adapt, and act. But the courage of your people made it possible. Solara smiled, realizing that Kale's humility was part of what made him extraordinary. He did not seek glory, yet his presence inspired confidence. Soldiers, nobles, and citizens alike began to see him as a symbol of human potential. Inside the council chamber, the alien generals had gathered, many still tense. General Vora stepped forward, clearing his throat. Your Majesty, he began, and Kale, it is clear now that we underestimated humans. Your strategy, your foresight, your leadership. Without it, the empire might have fallen. Kyle inclined his head respectfully. I only did what was necessary. The strength of an empire lies not in one individual, but in the unity of its people. The generals exchanged glances, some bowing slightly in acknowledgement. Even those who had doubted him openly before were forced to accept the truth. Kale had saved them all. Solara stepped forward, her voice commanding and calm. Let it be known, the Empire respects courage, intelligence, and loyalty regardless of origin. Kyle has proven that humans can be as formidable as any alien, and perhaps more adaptable. Today, we witness the power of trust and partnership. The council fell silent, absorbing her words. Some murmured in agreement, others in quiet reflection. Kale had not only defended the Empire, he had reshaped its understanding of humans entirely. In the days that followed, Solara and Kale worked to unite the Empire further. He advised on strategies to strengthen defenses, improve trade networks, and reform communication systems between provinces. His human perspective offered solutions the aliens had never considered. Slowly, old rivalries faded as Kale demonstrated that unity and intelligence could achieve what force alone could not. Citizens across the Empire began to speak of Kale's deeds. Stories of his calm courage spread, inspiring humans and aliens alike. Young soldiers studied his strategies, scholars analyzed his methods, and nobles reconsidered the prejudices they had held for centuries. Kale's presence became a bridge between species, showing that strength did not belong to one race alone. One afternoon, Solara led Kale to the balcony overlooking the capital. The sun reflected off the crystal towers, bathing the city in golden light. "Kale," she said, her voice soft, "you have done more than I could have imagined, not just in battle, but in changing hearts and minds. My people now see humans differently because of you." Kale looked at her quietly. "I only acted as any human would. Observation, adaptability, and courage guide us. But it is your leadership that allows these actions to succeed. Without your trust, none of this would have been possible." Solara's eyes softened. She realized that their partnership was more than strategic. It was personal, built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. She had married a human out of curiosity and admiration, but now she understood the depth of his strength. The Palace Council convened one final time to formally recognize Kale's contributions. The ceremony was unlike any other in the Empire's history. Nobles, generals, and citizens gathered to witness the acknowledgement of a human as a true hero. Vorus stepped forward, addressing the assembly. "Today we honor Kale, not as a human outsider, but as a leader, a strategist, and a savior of the Empire. His actions remind us that strength comes in many forms." The assembly erupted in applause. Even those who had once doubted Kale's worth now stood in respect. Solara felt her chest swell with pride and relief. The Empire was safe, its people united, and her human husband had proven himself extraordinary. That evening, Solara and Kale walked through the palace gardens, the twin moons casting silver light over the glowing flora. The air was calm, the city quiet, yet a sense of triumph lingered. "You have changed everything," Solara said softly. "Not just the Empire, but the way we think about humans. I knew you were clever, but I did not expect—" "This," Kale smiled faintly. "I only did what was necessary. Humans survive because we learn quickly, act decisively, and adapt. But the greatest power comes from trust and partnership, something your empire has given me." Solara took his hand, her eyes bright. "And I will always trust you. You are not only my husband, Kale, but my equal, my partner, and the strength of this empire. Together we will face whatever comes next." Kale nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Their journey had begun with curiosity, evolved through challenges, and now reached a moment of recognition. He had shown that humans were capable of incredible things, even in a galaxy that had underestimated them for centuries. Over the following weeks, Kale and Solara worked to strengthen bonds across the Empire. Trade and communication improved. Previously distant provinces grew closer, and alien citizens began to respect humans in new ways. Kale's strategies and guidance had created a lasting change, showing that intelligence and courage were not limited by species. The Empire, once divided by tradition and pride, began to move toward unity. Kale's influence had transformed politics, military strategy, and social perceptions. Solara watched with quiet satisfaction, realizing that the choice to marry Kale had not only changed her life, but also the future of her people. In private moments, Solara reflected on how far they had come. She had chosen Kale because he had intrigued her, and he had exceeded her highest expectations. His calm intelligence, bravery, and adaptability had saved her empire, earned the respect of her people, and revealed the underestimated potential of humanity. One evening, as the palace rested under the light of the twin moons, Solara and Kale stood on the balcony together. The city below shimmered in peace, the citizens celebrating quietly after weeks of tension. "Kyle," Solara said softly, "you have done more than any alien could have imagined. You have changed the hearts of my people and my own. I see now that humans are extraordinary, not because of size or strength, but because of courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when it matters most." Kale turned to her, calm and confident. "I only did what was necessary, Solara. But your trust made the difference. Without it, none of this would have been possible." Solara smiled, feeling the truth in his words. She had chosen wisely. The human she had married was no longer underestimated. He was a symbol of hope, unity, and the strength that comes from adaptability and courage. Together, they looked out over the capital. The Empire was safe, its people united, and the galaxy would now see humans in a new light. Kale had revealed the true power of his species, not through dominance or arrogance, but through intelligence, bravery, and quiet determination. and Solara knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and her human husband would face them together. The Empire had been saved, unity had been achieved, and the underestimated human had earned his place beside the alien queen. The story of Kale and Solara became legend, a tale of courage, trust, and the extraordinary potential of humans. From that day forward, the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.